Once upon a time, there were 3 little pigs, 3 brothers. They were all the same height, plump, pink, and had identical cheerful little tails. Even their names sounded similar. The pigs were called Nif-Nif, Nuf-Nuf, and Naf-Naf. All summer long, the little pigs tumbled around in the green grass, sunbathed, and lounged happily in the muddy puddles. But then, autumn arrived. It's time we thought about winter. Naf-Naf, the most sensible of the 3, said to his brothers one morning when he woke up early, "I'm shivering from the cold. Let's build a house and spend the winter together under one warm roof." But his brothers weren't eager to start working. "Plenty of time for that. Winter is still far away. We've got more playing to do," Nif-Nif declared, doing a somersault. "When the time comes, I'll build my own house." Nuf-Nuf chimed in and settled down in a puddle. "Me too," added Nif-Nif. "Well, suit yourselves. Then I will build my house alone," said Naf-Naf. Nif-Nif and Nuf-Nuf weren't in a hurry at all. All they did was play their silly pig games, jumping and rolling about. "We'll play today," they would say, "and tomorrow morning we'll get right down to business." But the next day, they said the exact same thing. It grew colder and colder with each passing day. It was only when the large puddle by the roadside began to be covered with a thin crust of ice each morning that the lazy brothers finally got to work. Nif-Nif decided that the quickest and simplest thing to do was to make his house out of straw. Without consulting anyone, that's exactly what he did. By the evening, his little hut was ready. Nif-Nif placed the very last piece of straw on the roof and, utterly delighted with his dwelling, sang a cheerful song. "You can travel half the world, half the world, half the world. A better home you won't behold, won't behold, won't behold." Singing his little tune, he headed over to Nuf-Nuf. Nuf-Nuf was busy building his own little house nearby. He was trying to finish this dull and uninteresting task as quickly as possible. At first, just like his brother, he wanted to build a house of straw, but then he decided such a house would be too cold in the winter. The house would be stronger and warmer if he built it out of branches and thin sticks. So he did. He drove stakes into the ground, wove the sticks between them, piled dry leaves onto the roof, and by evening his house was complete. Nuf-Nuf proudly walked around it several times and began to sing, "My house is fine and new, strong and true, strong and true. I fear no storm or dew, storm or dew, storm or dew." He hadn't even finished his song when Nif-Nif dashed out from behind a bush. "Well, your house is ready too," Nif-Nif said to his brother. "I told you we'd finish this quickly. Now we're free to do whatever we please. Let's go see Naf-Naf and what kind of house he's built," said Nuf-Nuf. "We haven't seen him in ages." "Let's go see," Nif-Nif agreed. Nuf-Nuf had been busy with construction for several days now. He had hauled stones and mixed clay, and was now calmly building himself a reliable, sturdy house, one that could shelter him from the wind, rain, and frost. He installed a heavy oak door with a bolt so that the wolf from the neighboring forest couldn't sneak in. Nif-Nif and Nuf-Nuf found their brother hard at work. "What are you building?" the surprised Nif-Nif and Nuf-Nuf cried out in unison. "Is that a house for a pig or a fortress?" "A pig's house should be a fortress," Naf-Naf answered calmly, continuing his work. "Are you planning on going to war with someone?" Nif-Nif squealed merrily, winking at Nuf-Nuf, and both brothers were so amused that their squeals and grunts echoed far across the meadow. Naf-Naf, however, carried on laying the stone wall of his house as if nothing had happened, humming a song to himself. "No beast in all the world will break down this door. The cunning, scary, scary beast won't break down this door. I'm the smartest. It is plain. It is plain. It is plain. I build my house with stone, with stone with stone. Which beast is he talking about? Nif-Nif asked Nuf-Nuf. Which beast are you talking about? Nuf-Nuf asked Naf-Naf. I'm talking about the wolf, replied Naf-Naf, setting another stone in place. Look how afraid he is of the wolf, said Nif-Nif. What wolves could there possibly be around here? Said Nif-Nif. There are no wolves. He's just a coward, added Nuf-Nuf, and they both started to dance and sing, We're not afraid of the big gray wolf. Gray wolf, where are you rambling, foolish wolf, old wolf, scary wolf? They wanted to tease Naf-Naf, but he didn't even turn around. Let's go, Nuf-Nuf, said Nif-Nif then. There's nothing for us here. And the two brave brothers went off for a walk. They sang and danced along the way, and when they entered the forest, they made so much noise that they woke up the wolf, who was sleeping under a pine tree. What's all that racket? The hungry and bad-tempered wolf growled discontentedly, and he trotted toward the spot where the squeals and grunts of the two foolish little pigs were coming from. Seriously, what wolves could there be here? Nif-Nif was saying at the time, having only ever seen wolves in pictures. We'll just grab him by the nose, and that'll teach him, added Nuf-Nuf, who had also never seen a live wolf. We'll knock him down, and even tie him up, and then kick him like this, and this, bragged Nif-Nif, and suddenly they saw a real, live wolf. He was standing behind a large tree, and he looked so terrifying, with such evil eyes and such a toothy mouth, that a chill ran down the spines of Nif-Nif and Nuf-Nuf, and their thin little tails began to tremble ever so slightly. The poor little pigs were too terrified to even move. The wolf prepared to leap, gnashed his teeth, and blinked his right eye, but the pigs suddenly snapped out of their fear, and squealing for all the forest to hear, fled for their lives. They had never had to run so fast. Their tiny trotters flashing and raising clouds of dust, they raced each toward his own house. Nif-Nif was the first to reach his straw hut, and barely managed to slam the door shut, right in the wolf's face. "Open the door immediately!" the wolf roared, "or I'll break it down!" "No," Nif-Nif grunted, "I won't open it!" Behind the door, the terrible beast's heavy breathing could be heard. "Open the door right now!" the wolf roared again, "or I'll huff and I'll puff, and your whole house will fly away." But Nif-Nif was too scared to answer anything. Then the wolf began to blow. "Hoo-oh!" Straw flew off the roof, and the walls of the house trembled. The wolf took another deep breath and blew a second time. "Foo!" When the wolf blew a third time, the house scattered in every direction, as if a hurricane had struck it. The wolf's jaws snapped shut right in front of the little pig's snout, but Nif-Nif cleverly dodged and started running. A minute later, he was at Nuf-Nuf's door. They had barely managed to bolt the door when they heard the wolf's voice. "Well, now I'll eat both of you." Nif-Nif and Nuf-Nuf looked at each other in terror, but the wolf was very tired and decided to try a trick. "I've changed my mind," he said loudly enough to be heard inside the little house. "I won't eat these skinny little pigs. I'm going home. Did you hear that?" Nif-Nif asked Nuf-Nuf. "He said he won't eat us. We're too skinny." "That's wonderful," said Nuf-Nuf, and immediately stopped shaking. The brothers cheered up and began singing as if nothing had happened. "We're not afraid of the big gray wolf. Gray wolf, gray wolf, where are you rambling, foolish wolf, old wolf, scary wolf?" The wolf had no intention of leaving. He simply stepped aside and lurked in hiding. He struggled to keep himself from bursting into laughter. "How cleverly I fooled those two silly little pigs." When the pigs were completely calm, the wolf grabbed a sheepskin and crept cautiously toward the house. At the door, he draped himself in the skin and knocked gently. Nif-Nif and Nuf-Nuf were terrified. "Who's there?" they asked, and their tails started shaking again. "It's me, a poor little lamb," squeaked the wolf in a thin, unfamiliar voice. "Please let me stay the night. I've lost my flock and I'm very, very tired." "We can let a lamb in," Nuf-Nuf agreed. A lamb isn't a wolf, but when the pigs opened the door a crack, they saw not a lamb, but the very same toothy wolf. The brothers slammed the door shut and pushed against it with all their might so the scary beast couldn't break in. The wolf was furious. He hadn't managed to outsmart the pigs. He threw off the sheepskin and snarled, "Just you wait. There won't be anything left of this house now." And he started to blow. The house tilted slightly. The wolf blew a second time, then a third, then a fourth. Leaves flew off the roof. The walls trembled, but the house still stood. It was only when the wolf blew a fifth time that the house rocked and fell apart. Only the door remained standing for a while amidst the rubble. In terror, the pigs bolted. Their legs felt numb from fright. Every bristle on their bodies trembled, and their noses were dry. The brothers raced toward Naf-Naf's house. The wolf was gaining on them with huge leaps. At one point, he almost grabbed Nif-Nif's hind leg, but the little pig pulled it away in time and put on a burst of speed. The wolf also pressed on. He was sure that this time the pigs wouldn't escape him, but he was unlucky again. The pigs dashed quickly past a large apple tree without even touching it. The wolf, however, couldn't swerve in time and crashed into the apple tree, which showered him with apples. One hard apple hit him right between the eyes. A large lump immediately swelled on the wolf's forehead. Meanwhile, Nif-Nif and Nuf-Nuf, scared half to death, reached Naf-Naf's house. Their brother let them in and quickly bolted the door. The poor little pigs were so frightened that they couldn't say a word. They silently threw themselves under the bed and hid there. Naf-Naf immediately guessed that the wolf had been chasing them, but he had nothing to fear in his stone house. He quickly bolted the door, sat down on his little stool, and began to sing. "No beast in all the world, cunning beast, scary beast, will open up this door, this door, this door." But just then there was a knock at the door. "Open up without a fuss." The wolf's coarse voice bellowed, "Not a chance." "We wouldn't dream of it," Naf-Naf answered in a firm voice. "Oh, really? Well, you asked for it. Now I'll eat all three of you." "Try it," replied Naf-Naf from behind the door, without even getting up from his stool. He knew that neither he nor his brothers had anything to fear in the sturdy stone house. Then the wolf inhaled as much air as he could and blew as hard as he could. But no matter how much he blew, not even the smallest stone budged. The wolf turned blue from the effort. The house stood firm, like a fortress. Then the wolf started to shake the door, but the door wouldn't yield either. The wolf, in his anger, started to scratch the walls of the house with his claws and chew on the stones they were built from, but he only broke his claws and ruined his teeth. The hungry and angry wolf had no choice but to tuck tail and leave. But then he looked up and suddenly noticed a large, wide chimney on the roof. "Aha! That's how I'll get into the house," the wolf rejoiced. He carefully climbed onto the roof and listened. It was quiet inside the house. "I'll still get a taste of fresh pork today," thought the wolf, and licking his chops, he started to climb down the chimney. But as soon as he began to descend, the pigs heard a rustling sound, and when soot began to fall onto the lid of the cauldron, the clever Naf-Naf immediately guessed what was happening. He quickly rushed to the cauldron, where water was boiling over the fire, and snatched off the lid. "Welcome aboard," Naf-Naf said, and winked at his brothers. The pigs didn't have to wait long. Black as a chimney sweep, the wolf plunged right into the cauldron. His eyes popped out, and all his fur stood on end. With a wild howl, the scalded wolf shot back up onto the roof, tumbled down it onto the ground, did 4 somersaults, and fled into the forest. And the 3 brothers, the 3 little pigs, watched him go and rejoiced that they had so cleverly taught the wicked rogue a lesson. No beast in all the world will open up this door, The cunning, scary, scary beast won't open up this door. You can travel half the world, half the world, half the world. A better home you won't behold, won't behold, won't behold. The wolf from the forest will never, never, no, never come back to us here, to us here, to us here. From that day on, the brothers lived together under one roof.